Hallo miteinander, I'm G86 and this is Gensou Ningyo Enbu, also known as Touhou Puppet Dance Performance. Now I'm going to start this off by saying the exact opposite as I did in the last Let's Take a Look at. Touhou Puppet Dance Performance caused a lot of hype among Touhou fans when it was first announced. It is anything but obscure nowadays, and how would it be given that it spoofs freaking Pokémon? First thing to notice, this looks like a GBA game, but that is only style. It is not a ROM hack. Also, I picked Hina as my starter. I wouldn't dare to pick anyone else. Never. You can start this game with whoever is your favorite Touhou, unless she maybe happens to be a legendary or something. But as I was saying, Touhou Puppet Dance Performance is, unlike the Touhou Puppet Play ROM hacks, a fully standalone PC game. The maker of said ROM hacks, A1C Hemogoblin, was involved in the making of Touhou Puppet Dance Performance as well, alongside the circle FocasLens. Still, this game is its own thing, built from scratch, and that's what made me so eager to get it. See, I never tried any of the Touhou Puppet plays. Something was always holding me back. You can go and fetch the nearest stone now, because my reason for my actions is a blasphemous one. I don't care for Pokémon. Now, I don't hate Pokémon. Back in the day, I had both Pokémon Blue and a little later Yellow. I played through them and had a good time. I appreciated their ideas overall. In direct comparison though, I preferred more traditional RPGs, the ones where you control multiple party members that are all active at the same time. The Final Fantasy archetype pretty much. When Gold and Silver editions came along, I just felt like I didn't need any more of it. And I suppose that was the day Pokémon became irrelevant for me. We'll continue on that subject a little bit later. For now, let's concentrate again on the game we are playing, as there is something coming up that needs some explaining. We are going to use a seal thread here. Seal threads are this game's equivalent of a Pokeball, but they work a little bit differently. Using it has given this wild Yatsuhashi, for example, a red aura. If you defeat a puppet while this aura is active, like we just did, you will catch it. She is now ours. It's not as simple as just using the thread though. Their effect only lasts a couple of rounds, so you need to win quickly once it's applied. Furthermore, threads can miss, and I think that's more likely to happen if you're using a thread of lower quality. We're going to try and catch this Ben as well, just so that Yatsuhashi won't be feeling so lonely without her big sis. For this fight, we'll be using this very Rayman-esque Sekibanki. Oh, her expressions in this game are always so funny to me. Anyway, you might have noticed that this game is a little bit bilingual. Touhou Puppet Dance Performance is still a pretty current game. It is only about 8 months old at the time of this video. Only a partially finished English translation exists at the moment. Still, the language barrier is already very small. As far as I can tell, NPC conversations are all done, and the battle messages that aren't can often be deduced from context. Not always, but often enough. Victory, as expected. Puppets you haven't used also gain a bit of experience, which is nice. I'm not sure if this is a deviation from the series or if newer Pokémon games have been doing this for a while. As I said before, I am the Pokémon poop noob. Who might this young lady be? She is a demon of Gensokyo and also a puppeteer. Yes, we have entered one of the many random trainer battles in the game. I at least know those have and probably always will be, a part of any mainstream Pokémon game. You always have to wonder why these barely ever bring a full roster. This one only has a Hata no Kokoro, or Miss Poofy Clown Pants, as I always like to call her, and nothing else. Against 6 of ours, great odds. However, this might become more problematic than you would think, and it's thanks to Kokoro's passive Moody ability. Moody will sharply raise one stat and slightly drop another in each round. That ability was the one and only reason we lost Chen there. I think we need the very best for this one. We need Hina. By the way, a fainted puppet will still gain experience for an encounter, but only when it was knocked out in that very battle. If you start a fight with already beaten puppets, they won't get anything. I guess it can't be helped. We need a healthy Chen for the rest of the video, so we will go to a resting spot and revive her once we're done with this. Whenever that may be. I think what happened here is Kokoro's moodiness drastically increased her evasion early on, while also losing her a good bit of accuracy. That is why we have multiple rounds here where absolutely nothing happens. God dang it, I hate it when I get my hit percentages messed with in these kinds of games. It can be truly obnoxious. If this keeps up, Hina, despite being 4 levels above Kokoro, might actually lose this. Unthinkable. But it seems our luck has returned to us. Winning a battle not only grants experience and the occasional item drop, but also another mystery resource called PP.
PP. If you have a fucking better name for them, then fucking say it, Clyde. Fucking asshole. I'm the king and I say it's PP.
I've got to agree with Cartman there. It doesn't matter what it's called, it matters what it does. PP are spent on things like increasing the stats of your choice, as well as having puppets equip new skills and passive abilities. We'll see a demonstration of the process later on. For now, let us heal up. Chen did in a way auto-revive with 2 HP, as she just happened to level up on the very same fight she fainted. Still, we weren't in good shape. Now we are again. The small Akio puppet on the counter there, by the way, was your puppet box. Pretty much the same as the PCs for storing Pokémon. While we are heading back, let us resume with why I don't like Pokémon all that much. Now, I'm not going to be the annoying kind of guy who says, "Oh, this is stupid about it, and you are wrong for liking it." No, there's not all that much to objectively criticize about Pokémon. I think after a while, it just didn't reach me anymore. I think it has most to do with the somewhat egocentric and to me very banal motivation you have in the games. Basically to become a Pokémon rockstar. I guess I just don't want to be the very best like no one ever was. I would much rather be a light warrior who saves the innocents from the grand evil. Doesn't matter if we had that plot a million times already. I've got to interrupt my Pokeblogging here, because this encounter is a great example for the type dynamic. Chen is a wind type, and therefore unfortunately very weak against a steel type like Ikikene. Getting a free turn through the skill Raid was well and good, but who we really need for this is the tiniest of all the Touhous, Sukuna. She is both steel and earth, and a pure steel type is very weak to earth. Keeping track of all these different types has always been a big part of anything Pokémon. Some of it is very simple to remember. Water beats fire has been burned into everyone's brains. Same goes for electric beats water. PSA time, that is why you don't store your blow dryer on the brink of your bathtub. Touhou Puppet Dance Performance has a whole 16 types in total. Some of the more obscure ones are a little bit hard to place for me sometimes, like Steel, Sound, and Nether, which describes the undead, as well as Hina for some reason. I must admit to some cheapness here. I've printed out a type chart from the Touhou Puppet Dance Performance wiki, and I always have it next to me just for those times when I simply can't remember a certain type relationship. It's not always easy, you know. Also not easy is even figuring out what type a certain unknown puppet is. With Ben Ben, it's fairly simple. All Touhous with musical instruments are sure to be sound. With who we are using right now, my most favorite fairy Luna child, you wouldn't guess so easily. Even though her powers in the lore have to do with the masking of sound, she is not of the sound type here. She is both light, because the three fairies of light naturally, and wind for some reason, I guess. Chen also happens to be wind, because cats are windy? Or maybe they pass wind if you give them the wrong food? In all fairness though, I think some liberties can be taken. Pokémon always have designs, features and colors that hint of their type, but when Sun makes up a new Touhou in his drunken mind, he doesn't think whether or not they would fit into a Pokémon type chart. For the most part, I think FocasLens handled it. Now I want to finally resume my Pokémon life story. I already said that I didn't find the motivation in the games very interesting, but I could also never really get into the world that's presented to me. All the NPCs are just way too obsessed with Pokémon, as if there's nothing else in their lives. Admittedly, Lavender Town was pretty intriguing. It was a bold and unusual move to bring the fleetness of life into a Game Boy game. But as a whole, there were too few of those highlights to really keep my interest in Pokémon. Touhou Puppet Dance Performance hits a more interesting atmosphere for me. As you may know, I kind of like Touhou, just a little bit. And this game has you explore Gensokyo, a lively, mysterious and endearing Gensokyo. As you can see here, the demons of Myoren Temple talk about Byakuren and Buddhism, not just puppets here and puppets there. Actually, I really like that the plot of the game itself treats the appearance of the puppets as an abnormality, an incident that has to be resolved. I also greatly appreciate the fact that the Touhou characters don't just exist as the puppets in this game, but that you can also meet and interact with them as people. For example, one of my favorite characters hangs out all the way back here at the Temple Cemetery. A cemetery lovely enough to live in, I would argue. Perhaps you can already spot her. She is a sneaky one, a grandmaster at catching people off guard. At least in her head she is. Yup, Kogasa Tatara is also a puppeteer, of course. Actual Touhou characters like her tend to be a little bit stronger than any made-up opponents we have already seen. If they are members of the Puppet Liberation Front, then they'll be even tougher. Said organization is the equivalent this game has to a Team Rocket. Then there's also Reimu and Marissa. They are pretty much Gary Oak, or Blue if you want to use his game name, the proper canonical name that would have been way too dumb to use for the TV show. Now Prank here is an interesting skill. If it hits, it'll always have an opponent's HP, regardless of defenses or type, so long as the latter doesn't grant outright immunity. But to wrap up what I was saying before, despite not at all being a Pokémon fan, I so adore Touhou Puppet Dance Performance. I know saying that might make me seem like the biggest fanboy, but it's just the way I feel. It makes me wonder, would I appreciate Touhou the same way I do now had I encountered it at the same time I did Pokémon, with my over-skeptical teenage mindset? Possibly not. Looks like Hina saved the day once again. I mean, we weren't ever really in any danger, but when in doubt, Hina is and always will be the best. Now, I promised you I would show what to do with PP. So let us do that and then call it a day. As said, there are a few things. We will start with the reinforcing of stats. The menu for this lets you increase the stats of your choice by assigning PP to them. This allows you to specialize your puppets to a small degree. You could make them stronger attackers or especially speedy. It is pretty nice. However, you may only spend 130 PP on any puppet like this, and each stat is limited by having a maximum of 64 points put into it. Another use for PP is acquiring skills. It always bugged me in Pokémon Blue that learning a new skill meant throwing away an old one lost forever. This game does it differently, maybe newer Pokémon games do too. Any learned but currently unequipped move can be found in this menu and put back into your moveset of 4 for a varying cost. Lastly, there is ability change, which I forgot to actively show. Short and simple, each puppet has 2 passive abilities it can swap for each other. Doing so deducts 20 PP. Well, that was all I wanted to show of this game. I'm Gesh86, this was Touhou Puppet Dance Performance, and because of this game, I am now thankful that Pokémon exists. Bis bald!